20. Most beautiful Black R&B legends you can't recognize today. They were once worshipped as goddesses of R&B voices that shook the world, faces that defined beauty, and stars that seemed untouchable. But time, trauma, and the cruel weight of fame have transformed them into women you'd hardly recognize today. From glamorous perfection to heartbreaking survival, their stories prove that behind every hit song is a price no one sees. Which of these legends shocked you the most? Stay tuned, because what you're about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence. Stephanie Mills. Stephanie Mills was only 15 when she became a household name, stepping onto Broadway in 1975 as Dorothy in The Wiz. Her voice carried the kind of power that seemed almost impossible for someone so young, a sound that could lift audiences to their feet in a single note. With her fresh face and bright energy, she embodied the kind of innocence that made fans protective of her. But that innocence masked a heavy truth. Mills once admitted that nearly every part of her life was predetermined. Her next shows, her career moves, even the kind of man she was expected to marry. For a teenager, it was less of a dream and more of a cage. While the world saw a star rising behind the curtain, she was carrying the weight of an entire family. She was not simply performing for applause, she was working to keep her household afloat. That responsibility, paired with the constant pressure of the industry, robbed her of a normal adolescence. Instead of school dances or carefree friendships, Mills navigated boardrooms, rehearsals, and contracts that treated her as a product rather than a person. Have you ever stopped to think about what is lost when a child grows up in the glare of stage lights instead of under the safety of a home? As years passed, the toll of that early sacrifice became clear. Relationships faltered, personal growth was stunted, and the vibrant Broadway pixie was transformed into a guarded adult constantly negotiating her right to live life on her own terms. Her story is a sobering reminder that fame often demands far more than it gives. Stephanie Mills, the girl who sang Home, had to fight for her own sense of home in a world that tried to script every moment of her life. Darlene Love. In the 1960s, few sounds were as recognizable as the soaring harmonies of Phil Spector's Wall of Sound. But behind those hits was a woman whose face remained invisible: Darlene Love. She was the secret weapon on songs like He's a Rebel and Christmas Baby Please Come Home Yet. The credit often went to other groups. While her voice defined an era, her name was erased from the spotlight, leaving her with nothing more than the memory of applause she never received. For years, she lived in the shadows of an industry that profited off her talent. By the 1980s, the same woman who had filled radios across America was scrubbing bathrooms as a housekeeper, making just $50 a day to survive. The contrast between her golden voice and her harsh reality was heartbreaking. How does someone go from being the heartbeat of an era to a stranger cleaning hotel rooms without recognition? The answer lies in exploitation so deep it almost erased her legacy. But Love refused to vanish completely. She fought long, exhausting legal battles to reclaim her royalties and her rightful place in music history. It took decades, but eventually the world acknowledged what insiders had always known: Darlene Love was a powerhouse. When she was finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2011, it was a victory not just for her career, but for every artist who had ever been silenced. Her story proves that beauty and talent alone are never enough in an industry built on control, and that sometimes the strongest voices are those that rise again after years of silence. Diana Ross. Diana Ross was more than a star. She was the very definition of glamour. As the lead singer of the Supremes, she became one of Motown's brightest diamonds, fronting 12 top 10 Billboard hits in the 1960s. With her statuesque frame, dazzling gowns, and seemingly flawless poise, Ross embodied perfection in every sense. Fans adored her, not only for her voice, but also for the image of untouchable sophistication that she carried with ease. Yet beneath that polished exterior, the weight of perfection was slowly crushing her. Her departure from the Supremes was not the graceful transition many imagined. It was marked by fierce rivalries with Mary Wilson and Florence Ballard, exposing the ruthless ambition behind her polished smile. The pressure to maintain her perfect image continued for decades, even as personal struggles mounted. In 2002, her arrest for drunk driving in Tucson stunned fans who had never seen her as anything less than in control. The mugshot showing a disheveled woman became a jarring reminder that even icons cannot outrun their humanity. Do you believe perfection is a gift? Or is it ultimately a prison that no one can truly escape? Ross's marriages first to Robert Ellis Silberstein and later to Norwegian shipping magnate Arne Næss Jr. both ended under the strain of fame and public scrutiny. The glamorous gowns and dazzling stages masked a woman who was often isolated, living under the crushing demand to be extraordinary at all times. Her story isn't just about the rise of a superstar, but about the impossible expectations that can turn even the most beautiful goddess into a fragile human being, struggling to balance the mask of perfection with the reality of life. Mary J. Blige. Mary J. Blige did not just sing soul, she lived it. Emerging in 1992 with What's the 411, she fused hip-hop beats with gospel-infused vocals, creating a new blueprint for R&B. Her raw honesty made her the queen of hip-hop soul, but behind the platinum records and Grammy wins was a woman haunted by trauma. As a child, she endured sexual abuse and crushing poverty experiences that shaped her music into a diary of survival rather than just entertainment. Her marriage to Kendu Isaacs seemed like a fairy tale at first, but it became another prison. He controlled her finances, her career, even her self-worth, while draining her income to sustain a lavish lifestyle. Blige later revealed that she worked non-stop just to support him, all while he chipped away at her confidence. Addiction to alcohol and drugs became her escape from a reality that was slowly killing her spirit. How can someone sing about love and empowerment while secretly drowning in betrayal? The divorce in 2016 was brutal, yet it marked a turning point. She confronted her pain instead of masking it and began to heal the scars that had been with her since childhood. Her music since then carries a new depth, songs not of despair, but of resilience. Blige's story is one of transformation, from a wounded girl forced into womanhood too soon to a legend who finally realized she deserved peace. Her voice remains powerful, but it is her survival, her refusal to give up on love and life that makes her unforgettable. Mavis Staples. Mavis Staples was just a teenager when her caramel-toned voice shook the walls of American history. With the Staples Singers, she stood beside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., singing anthems that fueled the civil rights movement. Her beauty was radiant, smooth skin, sparkling eyes, and a smile that could disarm even the coldest hearts. At the 1963 Newport Folk Festival, Bob Dylan fell so deeply for her that he proposed marriage, a union that could have changed the course of music. Yet Mavis, still too young, turned him down, choosing independence over romance. For years, she and Dylan exchanged letters, stolen kisses at festivals, both wondering what might have been. The decision shaped her life. Mavis remained unmarried, childless, and forever linked to a love story that never fully bloomed. But she poured that longing into music, becoming not just a singer, but a vessel for a generation's hope and heartbreak. Can you imagine carrying the weight of history and personal sacrifice in the same breath while still finding the strength to sing? Her career spanned gospel, soul, and even collaborations with modern artists like Prince and Wilco, proving that her artistry transcended time. Yet her life was not without cost. While others built families, Mavis built a legacy, often wondering if freedom came at too high a price. Her transformation from a young beauty who inspired love songs to a silver-haired matriarch of soul reflects both resilience and sacrifice. Mavis Staples is more than a legend. She is a living echo of choices that ripple across decades. Dionne Warwick. In the 1960s, Dionne Warwick was the very picture of elegance. Standing tall at 5'7" with striking cheekbones and a voice that turned Burt Bacharach's melodies into eternal classics, she was untouchable. Songs like Walk On By and I Say a Little Prayer made her an international sensation, earning her Grammy Awards and cementing her as one of the most successful female vocalists of all time. She was a symbol of poise, a woman who seemed to glide through fame effortlessly. But success came at a staggering price. Her marriage to actor William Elliott collapsed not once but twice, torn apart by jealousy as Warwick's star shined brighter while his career floundered. Even in divorce, she shouldered the financial burden, paying his expenses, even his funeral. Then came devastating financial mismanagement. By the 1990s, Dion owed over $10 million in taxes, forcing her to file for bankruptcy in 2013 with only $1,000 in her bank account. Imagine earning millions, selling over 100 million records, only to face complete financial ruin. Do you think fame truly protects an artist from poverty, or does it make them more vulnerable? Adding to the blow was a marijuana possession arrest at age 61, an incident that shattered her carefully cultivated, pristine image. Yet instead of fading, Warwick reinvented herself. With her sharp wit, she became an unlikely Twitter icon, introducing herself to new generations as a sassy grandmother of the internet. Her journey proves that beauty and success can crumble in an instant, but resilience can rebuild what was lost. The Dionne Warwick who once captivated the world with flawless elegance may be almost unrecognizable today, yet she embodies the survival instinct that has kept her voice and her presence alive. Candi Staton. When Young Hearts Run Free hit the airwaves in 1976, it sounded like an anthem of liberation. For Candi Staton, however, the song was a cry for help wrapped in disco glitter. She revealed decades later that the lyrics were inspired by her abusive marriage to Jimmy James, a man who once held her over a 20-story balcony and threatened her life. Her producer David Crawford wrote the song after she confided in him about the violence. Audiences danced, unaware they were moving to the soundtrack of her survival. Staton's story of resilience began long before her fame. At 9 years old, she endured sexual abuse within her family, a secret she kept for over 40 years. As an adult, she cycled through 5 turbulent marriages, many marred by violence and betrayal. Alcohol became a coping mechanism, and her life spiraled further during the early 1980s. How can a voice that brings joy to millions also carry such unbearable private sorrow? Her turning point came in 1982 when she found faith, gave up drinking, and embraced gospel music. Staton rebuilt her career in the church, reclaiming both her dignity and her purpose. Beyond her artistry, she became an outspoken advocate for women trapped in abusive relationships, using her platform to speak openly about the dangers she had faced. The glamorous singer, once known for her radiant smile and disco anthems, is now a survivor who wears her scars with pride. Her transformation shows that beauty is fleeting, but courage can make a legacy eternal. Martha Reeves. Martha Reeves wasn't just another Motown star, she was the fiery voice behind Dancing in the Street, a song that became an anthem of joy in the 1960s. Alongside her group, the Vandellas Reeves gave the world hits like Heat Wave and Nowhere to Run, embodying the energy of an era. Her voice radiated power, her beauty reflected the pride of Black America rising during the Civil Rights Movement. Yet that same anthem drew controversy, with some radio stations claiming it was a coded call to riot. Behind the spotlight, the cost of fame was devastating. By 1969, Reeves was battling exhaustion pressure and a growing dependency on painkillers. A breakdown led to hospitalization, where she was reportedly treated after a terrifying LSD episode. For years, she drifted between addiction and instability, trying to find her footing in an industry that had moved on. What does it mean when a song meant to inspire joy ends up symbolizing years of personal struggle for the one who sang it? Her 1970 album, Natural Resources, marked a tentative comeback, but the scars of her earlier collapse were visible. In 1977, Reeves embraced sobriety and faith, finally stepping away from the chaos that had consumed her. Beyond music, she sought new purpose, serving on Detroit's City Council from 2005 to 2009. While her once mighty voice has weakened Martha Reeves's journey, reflects the hidden toll of carrying a generation's anthem. The vibrant woman who once set crowds dancing in the streets is now remembered as both a trailblazer and a survivor of the unforgiving Motown machine. Patti LaBelle. Patti LaBelle has always been larger than life. Known for her soaring vocals, dramatic stage entrances, and wild costumes, she built a reputation as the godmother of soul. Songs like Lady Marmalade turned her into an icon, and audiences came to expect wigs flying into the crowd and gowns that sparkled like galaxies. Her beauty wasn't just in her looks, it was in the fearless way she commanded a stage. But her private life was shaped by deep tragedy. Between 1989 and 2000, cancer claimed the lives of 3 of her sisters, Vivian, Barbara, and Jackie. Each death struck like a thunderbolt, leaving LaBelle overwhelmed with grief and survivor's guilt. At the same time, her 30-year marriage to Armstead Edwards unraveled not with explosive drama, but with years of emotional distance. How does someone keep dazzling audiences when the lights inside their own life have gone dark? The answer for Patti was transformation. She began shedding the over-the-top costumes, performing with a more grounded and spiritual presence. Her music evolved too, becoming less about spectacle and more about raw emotion. The flamboyant diva slowly gave way to a woman who learned that vulnerability could be even more powerful than glitter. Patti LaBelle's journey shows that beauty is not always about perfection, it is about authenticity. Her story is a testament to how grief can strip away the surface, leaving something even stronger underneath a woman who survived loss and still chose to sing. Chaka Khan. Chaka Khan burst onto the scene in the 1970s as the fiery frontwoman of Rufus, her voice electrifying tracks like Tell Me Something Good and Ain't Nobody. With her wild hair, fearless fashion, and powerhouse vocals, she was dubbed the Queen of Funk, a title she wore proudly as she redefined what it meant to be a female performer in a male-dominated industry. But while the world saw a goddess on stage behind the curtain, Khan was fighting a relentless war with herself. Fame came with suffocating pressure, and cocaine became her escape. At the height of her addiction, Khan admitted she was consuming massive amounts daily, spending thousands of dollars a week just to cope. The drugs didn't make her happy, they simply kept her standing long enough to perform. Her voice, once flawless, began to crack under the weight of abuse, and her family relationships crumbled. How does an artist keep singing about love and freedom when their own life is shackled by addiction? The turning point arrived in the early 1990s when Khan finally entered rehab and chose sobriety for her children's sake. The transformation was dramatic. Her health improved, her performances regained strength, and her voice, once thought damaged forever, returned with astonishing clarity. Her survival story is one of the most powerful in R&B history, a woman who fell into the abyss and clawed her way back. Chaka Khan's beauty may no longer be in the fiery youth of her funk days, but in the resilience etched into every line of her face and every note of her recovered voice. Anita Baker. Anita Baker's voice is velvet smooth, soulful, and instantly recognizable. Rising to fame in the 1980s with Rapture and its timeless ballad, Sweet Love, she redefined sophistication in R&B. Her image was elegance, personified sleek gowns, poised interviews, and a calm aura that seemed unshakable. But Anita Baker's greatest battles weren't with rivals or critics. They were with the very industry that profited from her art. Unlike many who accepted unfair contracts, Baker refused to be treated as a commodity. She entered a long, bitter legal war with record labels to gain control of her master recordings. The lawsuits dragged on for years, costing her hundreds of thousands in legal fees and keeping her from recording new music during what should have been her peak earning years. Fans were left waiting while Baker sacrificed fame for principle. Would you risk your entire career for the chance to own your art? Or would you surrender to the system for security? The toll was immense. Stress bled into her personal life, contributing to the collapse of her marriage to Walter Bridgeforth Jr., and leaving her emotionally drained. Yet Baker's determination never faltered. When she finally won her independence, it was a victory for artists everywhere, proving that integrity could triumph even at enormous personal cost. Anita Baker's transformation isn't just about beauty fading with time. It's about the price of standing alone against an empire. The woman who once embodied effortless grace now carries the harder-earned beauty of resilience, a reminder that some legacies are built not on glamour, but on courage. Jody Watley. In the late 1980s, Jody Watley was the definition of futuristic cool. After leaving Shalimar, she stepped boldly into her solo career, giving the world hits like Looking for a New Love and Real Love. With her geometric hairstyles, bold fashion, and boundary-pushing music videos, she embodied the MTV generation's obsession with innovation. She wasn't just stylish, she was ahead of her time, setting trends that influenced pop and R&B for years. But staying ahead of the curve proved exhausting. As music evolved in the 1990s and early 2000s, Watley's futuristic image began to feel out of sync with a culture shifting toward raw authenticity. The qualities that once made her groundbreaking became constraints, leaving her struggling to adapt without losing herself. How does an artist remain revolutionary when the world no longer values the future but demands something real and unpolished instead? Watley's attempts to chase new sounds and styles often came across as forced, a sharp contrast to her effortless innovation during her peak. Critics who once celebrated her originality now compared her unfavorably to younger stars. Still, Watley never abandoned her artistry. She continued to perform record and refine her image, embracing her role as an elder stateswoman of style rather than a perpetual trendsetter. Her beauty may no longer be the cutting-edge glamour of the 1980s, but she embodies a different kind of allure, one rooted in survival experience and the courage to keep showing up long after the spotlight has dimmed. Toni Braxton. Few voices defined the 1990s like Toni Braxton's. With her sultry contralto and unforgettable ballads like Unbreak My Heart, she sold more than 70 million records worldwide, won 7 Grammys, and became an icon of sophistication. Her beauty was undeniable, sleek, graceful, and magnetic. She seemed untouchable. Yet beneath the platinum albums and glamorous image was a woman fighting battles that few could see. In 1996, fans were stunned when Braxton declared bankruptcy, revealing that despite selling millions, her record deal left her with only pennies on the dollar. She eventually signed new contracts, but the cycle repeated another bankruptcy in 2010, exposed just how predatory the industry could be. To make matters worse, Braxton was diagnosed with systemic lupus in 2008, a chronic illness that threatened both her health and her career. Can you imagine standing before thousands to sing love songs while silently fighting an invisible disease that drains your very strength? Her personal life was equally tumultuous. Her marriage to Carrie Lewis collapsed under the strain of illness and financial turmoil, followed by a highly publicized on-again, off-again relationship with Birdman. Through it all, Braxton kept performing her voice, carrying the weight of her struggles as much as her triumphs. Her transformation is striking, not the glamorous ingenue of the 1990s, but a woman shaped by survival loss and determination. Toni Braxton's story shows that even beauty, talent, and success cannot shield someone from the harsh realities of life, but resilience can turn tragedy into strength. Faith Evans. Faith Evans entered the 1990s as one of the brightest voices in R&B, blending gospel training with hip-hop swagger. Signed as the first female artist to Bad Boy Records, she earned the nickname First Lady of Bad Boy, and quickly became a star with hits like You Used to Love Me and Love Like This. Her radiant beauty and smooth vocals made her a perfect balance to the raw edge of 90s hip-hop. But her life took a turn no one could prepare for. In 1997, her husband Christopher Wallace, better known as the Notorious B.I.G., was murdered in Los Angeles just 6 months after Tupac's death. At 24, Faith became a widow and single mother, thrust into the chaos of the East Coast-West Coast feud that claimed her husband's life. The grief was overwhelming, worsened by public scrutiny of their troubled marriage marked by infidelity and arguments. Can you imagine mourning the love of your life while being forced to relive every detail in front of the world's cameras? The pain led her into years of prescription drug dependency and personal struggles, even as she tried to maintain her career. Albums like The First Lady reminded fans of her brilliance, but behind the music was a woman navigating grief addiction and the responsibility of raising her children. Evans eventually sought therapy and recovery, slowly rebuilding her life and reconnecting with her family. Her transformation from the glamorous face of 90s R&B to a survivor of hip-hop's darkest tragedy is haunting but powerful. Faith Evans represents the resilience of a woman who endured public heartbreak yet found the strength to keep singing. Brandy Norwood. In the 1990s, Brandy Norwood was the embodiment of teenage perfection. With her flawless vocal runs, wholesome image, and crossover appeal, she became a superstar through hits like I Wanna Be Down and The Boy Is Mine with Monica. She was also Moesha on TV screens, a role model for millions of young fans. Parents approved of her kids, admired her, and the music industry hailed her as America's sweetheart. But that carefully built image collapsed in a single moment. On December 30th, 2006, Brandy's Land Rover struck another vehicle on the 405 freeway in Los Angeles, leading to the tragic death of 38-year-old Awatef Aboudi Hajj. Though she was not criminally charged, the lawsuit's headlines and public judgment were devastating. Overnight, Brandy went from beloved star to a symbol of tragedy and guilt. How does a person carry the knowledge that one mistake behind the wheel ended a life, especially when their career depends on being seen as pure and trustworthy? The fallout was immense. Radio stations became hesitant to play her music, endorsement deals disappeared, and Brandy withdrew from the spotlight. She turned to therapy and faith, slowly working to process the weight of her guilt. Though she eventually returned to music and television, her image was forever altered. The once bright-eyed teenager who symbolized innocence now carried the heaviness of tragedy. Brandy's transformation is not about fading beauty, but about the scars left by one irreversible moment, a reminder that even the most celebrated stars are still human and painfully fragile. Monica Arnold. Monica Arnold was only 14 when she stormed the R&B world with her debut album, Miss Thang, 1995. With her mature powerhouse voice, she stood out among teenage stars, delivering classics like Don't Take It Personal and Angel of Mine. By the late 1990s, Monica was on top of the charts, even sharing the iconic duet The Boy Is Mine with Brandy, which became one of the best-selling singles of all time. Yet behind the bright spotlight was a life marked by heartbreak far beyond her years. In 2000, tragedy struck when her boyfriend Jarvis Weems died by suicide right in front of her. The shock left Monica devastated and reshaped the way fans saw her. Instead of the confident teen idol, she became a young woman grappling with grief trauma and the haunting what-ifs of losing someone she loved. How does a person continue performing on stage while carrying the image of their partner's final moments burned into memory? Though Monica went on to release more albums and raise a family, her personal life remained complicated. Later relationships brought new challenges, including broken engagements and struggles with trust. Each heartbreak left its mark, reflected in both her lyrics and her increasingly guarded demeanor. The once wide-eyed teen who seemed destined for endless stardom transformed into a weathered survivor whose strength came not from fame, but from enduring pain. Monica Arnold's beauty and talent are undeniable, but her story is also a sobering reminder that even the brightest voices can be shaped and scarred by tragedy. Ashanti Douglas. In the early 2000s, Ashanti Douglas reigned as the undisputed princess of R&B. Her self-titled debut album in 2002 sold over 500,000 copies in its first week, earning her a Grammy and solidifying her as the First Lady of Murder, Inc. With her flawless looks, radiant smile, and smooth vocals on hits like Foolish and Always on Time with Ja Rule, she embodied youthful perfection. For a moment, it seemed like nothing could dethrone her. But the fairy tale came with shadows. Allegations of questionable business practices within her label and the messy fallout of her high-profile relationship with rapper Nelly began to taint her image. As the 2010s unfolded, Ashanti struggled to maintain her position in a rapidly changing industry. New stars rose with fresh sounds, and her once dominant presence began to fade. Can a former chart-topping star reinvent herself in an era that moves on so quickly? Or does beauty and talent eventually lose their power in the face of time? Ashanti pivoted toward independence, releasing music without the backing of a major label, and even ventured into acting. Still, the results lacked the explosive impact of her early days. Though she remains admired for her style, resilience, and undeniable talent, the transformation is striking from a flawless pop princess who defined an era to a mature artist still searching for her place. Ashanti's story is less about downfall than about adjustment, the difficult process of learning how to exist once the crown no longer shines as brightly. Jill Scott. When Jill Scott released her debut album, Who Is Jill Scott? Words and Sounds Vol. 1 in 2000, she changed the way the industry viewed Black femininity. With her lush poetry turned into song and her full-figured presence celebrated on stage, she challenged narrow beauty standards and made confidence itself part of her artistry. Hits like A Long Walk and Golden weren't just songs, they were affirmations carried by a voice rich with warmth and wisdom. She was hailed not only as a singer but as a symbol of empowerment. Yet the music industry's obsession with thin bodies was relentless. Behind the applause, executives pressured Scott to lose weight, suggesting her career depended on it. The scrutiny followed her everywhere. Red carpet appearances became arenas for public commentary, with tabloids speculating about her body rather than her talent. Imagine building your entire career on self-love, only to be told you must shrink yourself to be accepted. Would you bow to the pressure or stand firm in your own truth? Scott chose defiance. She embraced her body through its natural fluctuations, refusing to starve herself for approval. Still, the criticism took its toll, affecting her personal relationships and making her question whether love and acceptance could coexist with visibility. She turned that pain into art, weaving themes of resilience, sensuality, and survival into her albums. Over 2 decades later, Jill Scott's beauty is no longer measured by industry standards. It's defined by her refusal to let others dictate her worth. Her transformation is not about fading glamour, but about claiming power in imperfection. Jill Scott remains a reminder that authenticity endures even when trends pass, and that the most radical act of all is to love yourself out loud. They were once the most beautiful and powerful voices in R&B, women who gave us anthems that still echo through generations. Yet behind the music lies a truth that beauty fades, fame demands sacrifice, and survival often leaves scars deeper than applause can heal. Some reinvented themselves, others fell into shadows, but all remind us of the fragile line between stardom and struggle. Do you believe these transformations reflect resilience, or the brutal cost of an industry that devours its own? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence.